Hello there. This is a totally, totally off the wall Monday. We're in the middle of getting a new roof, and that is going to be very audible during this sit, I imagine. I said we were going to do C. We were going to explore C today, so we will do that. But I know that the only people that are probably aware that I'm on are those that are subscribed and that have clicked on that little bell icon. I think that's the only way that when I create a live stream this late in the hour that you actually see that this is on. Um, so I know there won't be as many people joining live as normal, but I appreciate those that are diligent and aware and tolerate my somewhat scatteredness. So if if I will try to do a little bit of sort of muting myself on and off throughout the sits and or the sit today, which will be 15 minutes. I forgot to introduce myself. So my name is Andrew Leonards. I am a certified mindfulness meditation coach in the Unified Mindfulness System. You can find out more about at unifiedmindfulness.com. I am many things, but I am not a licensed therapist or mental health professional. I am a meditator and I can answer a number of questions in that sort of realm, but it's always important for folks to understand what the limitations are. There are a lot of my fellow coaches that have cross training in psychology, therapy, psychiatry world, or they're cross-trained in other modalities. So I just want to kind of point that out. Software and being a nerd are pretty much my strong suits, not those other things. And then this is part of this wacky December experiment, well, the November experiment that came into December. So we've got one more week before we get into sort of the holiday week. I know for sure I'll be here all of the week of the 21st, but what's going on with the week of the 27th, 28th is something that I'll talk more about as we get towards that. So you'll be hearing hammering on and off. If you sat with the Do Nothing Project last night, Jeff offered this sort of prompt at the beginning of the sits where he mentions that one of his intentions is to sort of in essence, sort of harbor no ill will to what may seem like intrusions on his sit. And so that's a way for us to sort of offer up a sort of set and setting for the practice of strengthening equanimity. This idea that I can have dogs barking or I can have people on the roof hammering and scraping and everything else, and that I'm able to kind of roll with that, and I'll be distracted perhaps, but I'm not going to be necessarily sort of upset about that distraction. We may not all be in that spot today, so that may not be available. Totally fine. But I just call attention to Jeff's prompt from last night because we're in, as I have said in the past, Shinzen has this acronym ION, interest, opportunity, and necessity, is what that ION, ION. And today is one of these out of necessity situations where we've got banging and all sorts of other sort of stuff. So yeah. And Gabrielle, sorry about that. Just joining now, so you're totally fine. I didn't post, or I didn't make my live stream links for the week last night like I normally do, and so that means that pretty much everybody or there's maybe one or two, there's two of you watching right now, at least that's what YouTube thinks. But yeah, I think most people will be late. So, and then we're trying to turn around client work really, really quickly at work. And so it's a real frazzled kind of day. So, which is all the more reason to sit. So, we do 15-minute sits. We usually explore some element of a technique, a something that I'm pulling out of the system that I'm trained in, the Unified Mindfulness System, or for short. And then we're doing nothing, which is also a technique. It's included in the wider set of possible techniques, but it's definitely not a technique that by any way the has ownership of. Actually, none of the stuff in has ownership of, other than in essence, it's a realization of techniques that exist out in the wild. It's meant to be sort of this umbrella system for possible ways for you to train attention. So, that's another video. But so we'll do a 15-minute sit, settle in at the beginning. We'll have about 6 minutes in each of those categories. Today's category, or each of these spots, today's category will be C. So to prepare for that, you may want to shift your eyes away from the screen as one aspect. For me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my eyes down so that my eyesight will be down, and then I won't be seeing myself necessarily on screen. So that's one way to do that. You can also drop your eyelids to sort of half mass. So the idea being that you can have your eyes open, but not all the way open. I tend to keep my eyes almost all the way open, but then drop the gaze, because then I don't have eyelid flutter. And so you can play with that. It's all up to experimentation, however you'd like to do it. Totally fine. So, and the other option is don't do it. Pick another home base for the 6 minutes that we'll have in that spot and do that. So in Unified Mindfulness, we have these sort of broad categories of experience. We have see, hear, and feel. So today we're playing around with see. That includes mental image, which may be you may experience behind the eyes, or sort of a blank movie screen. You may have a very vivid mental image experience, or you may have more on the low end of that vividness, maybe black and white even. So see in is one aspect, and then see out we'll be playing with as well. The notion for why I'm picking see out is just because beginning to be able to practice with your eyes open, I feel like is helpful for if your goals are to bring practice into motion. So that's just an aspect there. And then lastly, we'll be using C as the label when noting our attention being inside of the C category. That could be in or out. That's totally up to you. I'll offer that if you're having your eyes open, you may want to find a rhythm of noting that is pleasant, and that's one way for you to be able to stay engaged with the act of see out, because you may start to find your mind wandering, because without there being a lot of stimulus, then you may get kind of disinterested or bored. So if you have any questions before I begin, you can always post those in chat, and then also talk about, if you have questions, I'll try to respond at the end, or experience reports. I'm always game for that. So I'm going to invite the bell, and we'll begin. And somehow we've timed it so that the roofing people are not pounding, which is pretty amazing. The universe wants us to meditate. So I invite you to adopt a posture that will help you be both relaxed and alert, upright, dignified. It may be helpful to check in with the position of the body. So ideally, we're stacking the shoulders over the hips. Our nose is aligned with the navel. Our ears are aligned with the shoulders. So our torso is upright. We may want to tilt the chin sort of in and towards the sternum. And then just checking in to see if we have any tension. Often we hold tension in different places in the body. So just seeing if there's any tension I usually check the forehead, the eyes, the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. You may find that you hold tension in other places, maybe the hands or hips or hip flexors. So just checking in, and often when we notice tension, it will begin to subside or release. And if it doesn't, this is our first opportunity to bring no big deal sort of attitude to what's going on in our experience. And then a few deliberate breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. Breathing in through the nose helps slow down our breaths. Breathing out through the nose helps us elongate and extend the exhale. And as we slow that in breath, it helps us breathe into the lower part of the lungs. And as we lengthen that exhale, it cues the nervous system that we can shift into a more rest and digest mode. And then I invite you to shift into our technique. Again, your choice, eyes open or eyes closed. Encourage you to experiment with eyes open if possible. So our label for noticing what's going on in our visual experience is see. So we notice what's in the field of our vision, soak our attention in, and label it see. And as you get into a rhythm, you may notice more pronounced when you, maybe more pronounced when you blink. So you can choose to note that or ignore it. And you may want, there's a few ways we can work with vision. So you may want to allow the eyes to move freely and focus wherever they want. As we do that, again, the same pattern of noting, soaking the attention in, and labeling. Or we can sort of see all of what's in our field of vision at once. You can think of this as a sort of distant mountain gazing. Either in the eyes is totally okay. So explore, see. So if you've gotten into a good rhythm, then good. I would encourage you to continue. If you're finding difficulty connecting with this focus range, you may want to tweak your technique a little. You can try dropping the labeling, sort of see and know that you're seeing, borrowing from Joseph Goldstein. Or you can increase the frequency of labeling. So experiment with those, or continue as you are. Just see. Good. So we'll drop that technique and we'll shift into do nothing. So we let go of the technique. We can leave our eyes open or close them, your choice. Or you can choose to experiment with the eyelids being half mass. But we'll move into letting whatever happens happen. And if we spontaneously notice that we're controlling our attention or trying to direct or produce some sort of technique, we'll let that go as well. So explore this open stance, this choiceless awareness. So you may find that you're able to sit and allow the thoughts and everything being totally in the background, and then all of a sudden a thought will appear that's just too good not to add something to. Thought produces another thought that's just too sticky. So if you've noticed that you're sort of carried away by some of the thoughts, just an acknowledgement of that and then letting go. And it's okay for those thoughts to keep arising. We just don't want to add. And at the same time, we don't want to subtract or try to split our attention. So there's no fences, just free range. Let the attention go where it wants to go. So I invite you to reconnect to your surroundings. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Good little stretch. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for spending 20 plus minutes with me. Like 22 minutes ago. So you may have been able to hear some of it at the top of this. But it's a completely different sound experience than it currently is right now. So I'm glad that we got a respite a bit from that. And if it had been noisy, we're meditators. We can sit through that. It's not a big deal. So I think that's as Jeff was saying, that's the vaccination, right, against the reactivity of that. So yeah, that's a very good point, Gabrielle. You have the ability to go back to that as a home base, and the tuning of that is the to me the moment of being able to be. That's the be your own teacher part that Jeff talks about. So borrowing from Shinzen Young, which I am sort of being certified in his system, I am wont to do. He'll offer, if you feel spacey, then you should do noting. So if you do nothing and you feel spacey, then do noting, and that will give more structure. But if you feel racy, then letting up with do nothing is a way to tune that. So there's this idea that comes up in the way that Shinzen looks at tuning the practices, is this idea of knowing when to ease up and knowing when to bear down. And that is this dance. Because even though days will often feel repetitive, especially in the now times, we feel a bit like we're in Groundhog Day, where it's like the sort of this days are very have very repetitious quality to them. So it's great that you saw that and then shifted to that. That's awesome. I'm like 100% gold star. That's a great move. So yeah, I again am mystified that the roofers stopped for this. This apparently is their break time or whatever. So that's pretty amazing. We'll be back tomorrow. I will have all of the live streams up for the remaining part of the week. So there won't be such a shock or a surprise. But yeah, and then to your point, seeing with eyes open is really really hard. Um, or I should say, I think it's very challenging, and so tuning to that is also something, and then having that as your front end practice, and then having do nothing. That may have been a little bit also of why you might feel unfocused. This is not the most supportive combination at first. I know that I struggled with eye flutter a lot when I first started sitting. So Soto Zen uses this style of in Zazen. So Shikantaza, what means like sort of like an emphatically just sitting, is what Shikantaza means. And in that style of sitting, the eyes are open. There's a very elegant and beautiful framing that Shunryu Suzuki Roshi offers, which is this idea that all the sense doors are open, and as we breathe in that, we become this sort of swinging door, sort of like the inside and the outside. And so having that or not, if you don't do that a lot, it definitely is something to get used to. So, and I think I've gotten used to it enough that maybe I don't, or I should say, I may be used to it enough that I didn't appreciate that as much when we were offering guidance. So thank you for mentioning that. Awesome. Well, I hope you have as good a Monday as you can have. Let's be honest. Mondays are often challenging. And hope to see folks here tomorrow. Those that are tuning in after the fact, my sincere apologies for not having the live streams pre-made as I normally do. So I will get that taken care of. And if I don't see you in the rest of the week, have a great week.